Last time on Rise of the Soul Queen, the Guardians and Siren took shelter in Keith's high-rise safe house. David and Talia reunited after centuries apart. The teens begin to see who they truly are, leaders of ancient factions. Lily opened a vision of the past, Elfkin warriors, elemental power, soul and arcane united. When the memory faded, David turned to them all. "So," he says, "who's first?" Episode 12. Training begins. The silence that followed David's bold challenge, "Who's first?" hung thick in the air with the teens. They glanced between one another, grinning nervously, their adrenaline rising. It was Lily who stepped forward first, brushing her hair behind her ear. "We can't do anything here," she said, her gaze scanning the spacious but fragile living room. "We'll destroy our host's home." Keith, arms crossed and smiling, nodded with understanding. "I have a training room upstairs." David's eyes sparked with approval. "Well, let's get to it." The teens practically bolted for the door, barely able to contain their excitement until Talia raised a hand. "Stop," she said, her tone firm. "You can't train dressed like that." Zoe looked down at her flared sleeve, layered skirts. "What's wrong with what we're wearing?" she asked, her hands thrown up in mock defense. Celia chuckled, walking past them. "If you're going to train, you have to dress for it." Keith turned to Julia, who had remained silent at the back of the room. She nodded, stepped forward with a calm authority. "Come with me," she said, motioning the teens to follow her. They did, down the hall, disappearing one by one into the rooms prepared for them. Meanwhile, Keith pressed his palm onto a panel on the far wall. With a quiet hiss, a section of the wall slid open to reveal a narrow, steel-lined staircase. "This way," he said. David, Talia, Lily, Thomas, and Celia followed him up the cold industrial stairway. At the top, Keith opened a heavy steel door, revealing a massive high-tech training facility. Lights blinked across the walls, mats stretched across the floor in combat grids, and suspended drones lined the ceiling above like dormant insects. Holographic consoles flickered on and off, waiting for activation. It was eerily reminiscent of the Elkin training compound from the Vision, though this had a sleeker, more human military design, like a futuristic Navy SEAL base. Celia let out a gleeful sound and punched her fists together. "This is what I'm talking about," she exclaimed, running into the space like a child on Christmas morning, spinning around, eyes wide, enjoying the full presentation. Talia walked forward, more slowly, brushing her fingers along the dark consoles. "What is this?" she asked, her voice low and skeptical. Keith approached, tapping the metallic band on his wrist. "Auto-response droids powered by AI," he said. "They respond to the energy signals of the person engaging with them." "Energy signals?" she asked. He gave a quiet smile and spoke toward the air. "Activate attack console. Subject to your right." A low hum started beneath their feet. Lights along the ceiling flashed amber. Beeps echoed through the chamber. Then 5 drones lifted from their stations, hovering with eerie synchronicity as they rotated to face Talia. David instinctively stepped forward, his fist glowing with soul energy, but Keith caught his arm. "She'll be okay," he said with quiet confidence. "She's fire." Still, David watched, his fists clenched. The drones scanned Talia with a sweep of red light. One by one, they flashed the fire emblem, crimson sparks dancing in their lenses. Talia grinned. She raised her arms into a fluid stance, her body coiled like a dancer ready to strike. "Let's go," she whispered. The drones attacked. Flames burst from her palms as she flipped, ducked, and launched counterstrikes. Her movements were graceful, a fiery dance that left trails of heat in the air. She dodged blasts, countered with bursts of fire, and spun with explosive energy. From the sidelines, Celia whooped and clapped. "Yeah, get him!" Talia's eyes narrowed. She called out a strange incantation in a foreign tongue, her voice reverberating through the chamber. A fire burst ignited from her body like a solar flare. The room shook. Drones exploded into pieces, crashing to the ground in smoking heaps. Talia dropped to her knees, her breath ragged. David was at her side in seconds, kneeling. "Talia, are you okay?" She looked up, her eyes glowing with joy, not pain. Her lips curved into a wild, breathless smile. "Oh," she panted, "that was fun." The room still hummed with the heat of Talia's final flare. Smoke curled upward from the scorched remains of the drones, and the faint echo of the last explosion reverberated through the steel walls. The door at the far end hissed closed. The teens had just stepped inside, wide-eyed and frozen in place. Emily's mouth hung open. Zoe let out a low whistle. Lily blinked at the scorched drone parts scattered across the floor, then at Talia, still catching her breath, a wild grin on her face and red firelight fading from her irises. "Whoa," Andrew breathed. "What did we just walk into?" Talia stood, brushing soot off her arms. "Just warming up." "You incinerated 5 of those things," Brian said, his voice half awe, half nerves. Zoe stepped forward, tugging at the sleeve of her sleek new jacket. "Okay, first of all, can we talk about how incredible these outfits are?" she said as she did a little dance like a pop star in a music video, her combat-grade fabric catching the light with reflective threads. "I look like I walked out of a sci-fi runway." "I feel like I could punch through a wall in this," Andrew said, flexing, "or at least not dislocate a shoulder if I fall over. Coach would love these." Keith smirked from the sidelines. "They're designed for mobility and protection. No more training in ripped jeans and cartoon t-shirts." David chuckled. "Welcome to the real game, kids." The teens spread out, testing the floor, the gear, running their fingers over consoles and touchpads. The energy in the room had ignited, a mix of giddy excitement and wide-eyed curiosity. This wasn't theory anymore. It was real. "All right," Thomas said, stepping forward, his voice calm and deliberate. "Let's begin." The room quieted. Tom's gaze settled on Brian. "I'd like to start with you." Brian tensed. "Me?" "Yes. Aren't you curious?" Thomas moved with a mix of grace and authority. "It's the nature of Arcane to be curious." He stood in front of Brian, arms crossed. "Being around humans, we must hold ourselves back so much. But Arcane isn't meant to be contained. We reveal ourselves through emotion, intuition, instinct. Let me see what you've got underneath." Brian shifted, uncertain. "Underneath what? I don't know what you want me to do. I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, you can. You know," Thomas interrupted gently, "and you will." He waves a hand to the floor. "Come." Brian stepped forward, hesitant. Lily gave him an encouraging look. "You can do this." Thomas circled him slowly. "You feel different from the others, don't you?" Brian nodded faintly. "That's not a flaw," Thomas said. "That's your power." As Thomas extended a hand, something inside Brian snapped into place, or maybe out of it. The air thickened. A tremble ran through the air. Brian's eyes flared a soft violet, and everything changed. Brian stood frozen in the center of the room. The others had drawn back, forming a half circle near the wall. Everyone, even the air, seemed to just hold its breath. Thomas paced slowly around Brian, eyes narrowing as faint streaks of purple light gathered along his palms. Elegant, restrained, dangerous. "Defend yourself," Thomas said. Brian hesitated. "From what?" A flash. Thomas' hands flicked up, and a ripple of violet energy darted forward, striking Brian's shoulder like a whip. He stumbled back, more startled than hurt. "That," Thomas said softly. He struck again. Another pulse hit Brian's side, jolting through him like static. The boy winced, struggling to hold his footing. "Come on," Thomas urged. "You feel it, don't you? The hum in your blood?" I don't," Brian started, but Thomas was already moving, sending 2 quick bursts that brushed his arm and then his leg. Each contact made the air hum darker, sharper. "Don't lie to me," Thomas said, circling him like a patient predator. "You've always felt different, haven't you?" Brian's jaw clenched. "Stop!" "People teased you for it," Thomas continued, his voice cutting through the tension. "They don't understand you. They laugh, they whisper. You smile back, but inside you wish you could make them stop." "Stop it," Brian said louder, his breath shaky. "You want them to pay," Thomas whispered. "Just once, to see what it feels like. Power instead of pain." Brian's fist trembled. "No!" Thomas closed the distance, his eyes burning with arcane purple light. "Say it." Brian's breath caught. For a moment his eyes looked like they might spill over. Then something inside him broke loose. The lights flickered. The hum of machinery spiked into a low, throbbing hum. A sudden gust of energy rippled outward from Brian's body, violet tendrils twisting in the air all around him. Thomas stepped back, satisfaction across his face. "Good," he said quietly. "Now let's see who you really are." Brian screamed, not in pain, but in release. His feet lifted from the floor, energy wrapped around him in chaotic streams. The arcane had him now, raw and untamed. His control was gone. Then came the drones. Alerted by the arcane surge, 5 units dropped from the ceiling, sleek, fast, armed with stun tech and kinetic barriers. They locked onto Thomas with blinding speed. He didn't flinch. One gesture, a pulse of energy from his fingers, and the first drone shattered midair. He spun gracefully, another flick of the wrist, disarming 2 more. The remaining machines surged forward, and Thomas vaulted upward, launching a tight burst of shadow light that disabled them all in 1 instant. Sparks rained down like metallic confetti. He turned midair and sent a final blast of power toward Brian. The boy was still floating, wild, unstable, and consumed. The energy hit him squarely and flung him across the room. He slammed into the wall with a violent crack, crumbling to the ground. "Brian!" Lily cried out, rushing toward him, but it was already too late. Brian rose, eyes blazing like arcane fire, not just glowing now, burning with deep purple intensity. His face twisted, lost in something primal. He wasn't there anymore. Purple fire erupted from his hands, lashing out at everything around him. The floor fractured under the surge. Sparks flew. Walls groaned. Lily stepped into his path, arms raised. "Brian, listen to me." The blast caught her full force and sent her flying across the mat. She hit the floor hard and didn't move. "Lily!" Zoe screamed. "Brian!" Thomas called out. "Stand down!" No response. Andrew pushed in front of the girls just as another wave of violent energy surged forward. "Get back!" he shouted to them. Boom! The impact threw him across the room like a rag doll. David appeared in a blur, dropping to his knees beside him. A glowing sphere of golden light expanded from his hands, forming a radiant shield around Emily and Zoe. He looked up at Thomas. "Do something with your Syrian before I have to hurt him." Thomas narrowed his eyes. His demeanor shifted. Lily stirred, crawling to her knees. "Let me try again," she whispered. She rose shakingly, stepping forward. Her voice was soft, trembling, but filled with care. "Brian, it's Lily. I'm here. Please, you must stop." He turned toward her, but he didn't stop. A furious arc of flame burst from his palms, violet and purple and wild. She barely dodged it. Thomas inhaled deeply, drawing his hands together. Energy pulsed outward from him, not violent, but ancient. It shimmered like a mirrored ripple in the air. "Enough," he said, stepping forward. He raised his hands, and purple vines bloomed from the floor. Not plant, not tech, but pure arcane construct. They coiled upward, catching Brian midair and lifting him higher from the ground. He thrashed, screaming, hurling fire that scorched the ceiling, but the vines held. Thomas walked forward slowly, the light around him dimming to a quiet hum. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Brian," he said, "my Syrian, my lord." Brian growled, snarling like an animal, eyes burning bright. "Please," Thomas said again, "come back to me." And something in the tone cut through. Brian's breath hitched. The energy around him shuddered. His eyes flickered between his normal dark brown and the arcane dark violet. Then the glow faded. The flames vanished. His body sagged into the vines, trembling. His chest heaved with sobs. Thomas released the spell, catching him gently as he dropped to the ground. He pulled him close, arms around him, holding him firm and steady. "It's all right," Tom muttered, voice close to his ear. "It's all right, my Syrian. Arcane is powerful and it can be very dark, but this," he touched Brian's chest lightly, "this is not about control. It's about acceptance." Brian nodded weakly, tears streaming down his face. "Is everyone okay?" Thomas glanced behind them. Lily was kneeling beside Andrew, checking his pulse. Emily and Zoe were still curled beneath David's protective dome of light, shaking but unharmed. Thomas looked back at him. "Yes, my lord. Everyone is okay." Brian's shoulders sagged with relief, and he continued to cry. Emily watched, her face confused. She turned to David, still wide-eyed. "What did he mean by acceptance?" David looked toward Thomas and Brian, his expression suddenly more somber. "The Arcane are hybrids," he said. "Part elfkin, part human. They carry both light and shadow. They don't battle darkness. They are both. The best of both, and the worst. They don't conquer it. They make peace with it. They have to accept both to control the Arcane." He paused. "Very few ever do." The room all watched in silence as Tom held Brian close, arms steady, eyes closed. "But Thomas," David added quietly, "is one of the few that has accepted."